If you look at your bulletin cover, assuming y'all all got one, we even made extra copies this week, you will see the faces of Waldorf and Statler, the lovable curmudgeons from the Muppets that sat in the balcony while the show was always, they sat up in the balcony and they jeered and they heckled at the performance, only laughing at their own witty banter. We kind of have our own, now that I think about it. And while the show was always on some level a disappointment to them, they always came back week after week. The book of Ecclesiastes has actually been compared to these two, Waldorf and Statler. The book of Ecclesiastes is part of the bricolage, that's my word for the week, bricolage, of Proverbs and Song of Songs, known as the wisdom literature. But it's not like Proverbs, and it's definitely not like Song of Songs. A modern comparison of the wisdom literature of Proverbs could best be compared to one of those Barnes & Noble Power of Positive Thinking calendars. You know, the ones with the moving photography of places that we can only dream of visiting, with moving quotes that get us through our day. That's like the wisdom literature of Proverbs. Or maybe Proverbs is something on the level of the lines of Oprah's book club, something that breaks life down into little itty-bitty chewable pieces where it all makes sense and everything is, we know, will be all right. Proverbs aim to help the character formation of young Hebrew men to have a good life by being virtuous. But that is not at all the case of Ecclesiastes. The author, while it's attributed to Solomon, it's not Solomon. The author of Ecclesiastes is a person who's actually tried to live by the wisdom literature of Proverbs, and now in his advanced years is absolutely skeptical of the result. We see this clearly in the first chapter of Ecclesiastes, which says, "Vanity of vanities," says the teacher. "Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What do people gain from all the toil at which they toil under the sun? A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises and the sun goes down and hurries to the place that it rises." The writer of Ecclesiastes is wondering, what is the point? What is the point? We get up each day, we go to work, we come home, we go to bed, and we get up and we do it all again the next day. We earn our living, we spend our wages, and then eventually we die. What? What is the point? We've all asked this question at some point in our lives. We particularly ask this question when we're a little bit hungry and grumpy, when we're a little bit hangry, you know? When we're a little bit, or maybe a lot, irritated by traffic, by politics, by too much change, by too little change, and most certainly during tax season. We ask this question when our high school math teacher is trying to convince us that quadratic equations is something that we will use in our adult life. What's the point? We ask this question when our parents ask us to clean our rooms. We ask this question when we're not where we thought we would be at this point in our life, when we are the only ones left of our friends, when life isn't what we expected, as it most certainly never is. No matter where we are in life's journey, we undoubtedly at some point come back to the question, what is the point? And what does it all mean? That is the question that the author of Ecclesiastes tries to tackle. But maybe the author isn't such a complete curmudgeon, because I think the author is a realist. The author is really willing to name the realities of life. For everything, there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. Life holds both joy and sadness. Life holds the spectrum of all kinds of adventures. And we often spend a lot of time running from the ones that cause us deep pain. We spend time hiding what we are not, what we cannot be, or what did not happen. We spend so much time pretending that everything is okay, burdening ourselves with the task of holding the pain alone. Lent is a reminder to take the opportunity to confront the losses and the pain of our stories. It is the time where we can allow the pain of our losses to enter our hearts and have the courage to let our wounds be known to ourselves and felt. It is the time that embracing the freedom to cry in anguish or scream in protest. Better to mourn our losses than to deny them. But we don't do this alone. As Christians, we are part of a community of faith, the church, that at its best is capable of holding each other just as we are. Today, Ian and Jillian were baptized into the Christian tradition. While this was a public profession of their faith, it is also a profession of commitment to Ian and Jillian that they are not alone. They have a community that loves and accepts them just as God loves and accepts them. And it is a reminder to us that the church is capable of taking part in our happiness when circumstances are great, and if we allow it, is more than capable of sharing our pain and helping us pick up the pieces when the world comes crashing down. It is unique that we have a baptism in the middle of Lent. Lent is supposed to be a time to remain solemn and pensive. It's why most churches wait until the Easter celebration. But the timing of Easter was not right for Ian and Jillian, and today was. There is a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to mourn and a time to dance. There's a time for Lent and a time to be baptized. There is time to die and a time to rise again. Can it be that these times are all connected? That they inform each other? That one has meaning because of the other? I have recently learned of a poet by the name of Rupi Kaur. And upon reflecting and writing this sermon for this week, I was reminded of one of her poems that really captured my heart a couple months ago. She writes, "It has been one of the greatest and most difficult years of my life. I learned everything is temporary. Moments, feelings, people, flowers. I learned love is about giving everything and letting it hurt. I learned vulnerability is always the right choice because it is easy to be cold in a world that makes it so very difficult to remain soft. I learned all things come in twos. Life and death, pain and joy, salt and sugar, me and you. It is the balance of the universe. It has been the year of hurting so bad but living so good, making friends out of strangers, making strangers out of friends, learning mint chocolate chip ice cream will fix just about everything. And for the pains it can't, there will always be my mother's arms. We must learn to focus on warm energy, always. Soak our limbs in it and become better lovers to the world. For if we can't learn to be kind to each other, how will we ever learn to be kind to the most desperate parts of ourselves? There is a season for everything. The question is, how do we live a God-centered life in the midst of these precious moments that are always held in tension?